The thing that you said you would never return to, the thing you ran from your entire life, has a way of making its rounds back to you. And that may be true the first time that you give it an old Jonah try, to go back to the thing you couldn't redeem. But this time is going to be different. I don't mean go backwards, like go back to something bad, or to go back to the past and live the way that it was. This is not going to be toxic or abusive. Let me throw that into the mix here. A returning. A lot of times in the Bible, there is a returning. Jacob had to return, go back into the land of his home. He got a name change. He became Israel. And the story of Jonah, who was so sick and so tired of Nineveh and their crap. He disliked these people so much, was so confused at the way they were and why they couldn't just get it together, that Jonah runs from God when he says that he's going back to Nineveh. Basically, Jonah says, who? Not me. Long story short, short story long, he is on a boat, and a great and mighty squall approaches, and the boat is just all over the place. And they look at Jonah, and they're going, we could throw you off this boat here, because one thing that happened, we're not going down with your ship. That's what we know. This thing that you've created between you and God is between you and God. And some of us aren't good at this. Sometimes you got to know when to go, I can help you, and I'm a shepherd, and I have to keep check on my own self about stuff like this. And when I have to go, no, babes, this is between you and God. And so one of those times. He gets thrown over. He gets eaten up into the belly of the whale. You know the story. I want you to really think about the size of a whale. Pause this. Go Google the largest whale that there is. You come back and you tell me you wouldn't have PTSD after that. Okay, because I would. I don't like the ocean at all. He survives 3 days in the belly of the whale, which is only God possible, because the enzymes would have done something to him by this time. And where was his oxygen coming? Nobody can explain it other than God. Nobody could explain that. Well, he gets spit out, and he ends up going to Nineveh. You know, just that, and you're in Nineveh. And he goes, and he's still butthurt about it. He doesn't understand how God loves these people. They're annoying. You know, they don't listen. Do you hear the hypocrisy in this? But Jonah learned a lesson, and he sits under this fig tree, and the Lord comes along, and he has to talk to him about how he's kind of with him, and Jonah starts complaining more, and so the shade dries up, because at this point, Jonah is done with Nineveh, and God is done with Jonah, but not in the sense that he's done. He's just done with the complaining, and he's done with the running. But in the end, Jonah does what he's supposed to do. It just took a long time to get there. One time in my life, I thought I had done a Jonah, had pulled a Jonah, right? And I went back and I served in my hometown. This church was 0.5 miles from my father, the man that I spent my life avoiding, right? Never wanted to get back in a space where I was his target or his prey or nothing. Or even that he wanted to talk to me. I didn't want any of it, because I had been in every scenario. None of them ever turned out well for me. So I go. Right, and it's in this obedience I go, and I'm like, well, at least you didn't have to take me in the belly of the whale. And I go, and my hometown is the same way I remembered it. It was religious and kind of hypocritical and very judgmental, religious, and in some parts a little racist, and I say a little to be nice, and prejudice, and basically it was all those things. It just was gross. It just was one big pile of gross. And I worked there for about 3-4 years. And the Lord released me. And when He released me, I got released out here. And I remember thinking that felt kind of pointless, and I didn't really understand the background of why I had to go back or anything, because I didn't really see much of a difference that I had made. Maybe other people did, but I didn't. And I remember getting ready to leave that space, and a woman stopping me, and I remember telling her she was like a spiritual mother to me, and I was in my early 30s, and well, not when I left, but I was in my early 30s when I started. And so one of the older women there that was very anointed, I don't know how you can minister to people who are that much your elder, because I'm thinking, God, I should be asking you. And so a lot of times she would walk me through, and so would another woman that used to pastor there, and she would tell me, I was doing a good job and all those things, I remember looking at this woman and saying, you know what, I don't really know why I was here. I know we had the kids in free worship finally. I know that we had the elders coming to our modern church side of things, and, I know that, but I don't really see the resolution. I remember she looked at me and she said, you were here for me. And I never knew that she didn't know how anointed she was, or how prophetic she was, or any of those things, but I was just so adamant about those things because I saw it. I wasn't trying to be cute, I saw it, and I just told her. Well, years pass, and I've been a little bit everywhere since then, and you travel for ministry, you get to preach a little bit of everywhere, you get to reach people all over the world. And during this time, I had quit journalism. Not quit in full, but I quit covering politics or anything like that, because I'm not political. And they ask you to paint things a lot of times, one way for this way, one way for the other, and I won't do that. And I was turning down stories left and right, or picking up stories where it was just bad news and that was all people ever heard. And I really like story that's a human interest story, like a heartfelt story, or a story that's delivered with grace to evoke change, or to let people know that they're not alone. And I remember when Helene hit in the area that I was raised, and it hit me so hard. And I remember the Lord being so clear that I was coming out of journalistic retirement. He's like, you're coming out of retirement. I'm like, what does that mean? And I had got an offer from a network to go. They wanted me to write something, and I backed out and ended up posting it here. And what I reached were people that were from all over the United States and loved and cared about us. But I think the most important was that I reached our people, and what I really thought was it might be making change, but what I saw was that our people loved me more than they ever had, which was not what I was trying to do at all, or what I was even thinking. And ever since that happened, I've had, I get opportunities to go do things a lot, or even to move out of the country sometimes. And all of a sudden, I find my heart completely turned to the mountains and looking at it, and I don't see any of its religion anymore. I don't see any of its judgment anymore. I see all the parts that I love about home, and I can finally see home face to face, because I thought the fear back in my young days was that home didn't love me. I didn't realize what I was really afraid of is that home loved me back. So when you return to whatever it is that God is returning you to, know that it's been His plan the whole time. It may not be the whole plan, but it's part of it. And if you're raised in a space where you know the issues, you're raised in a space where you can make a difference, and you're raised in a space where you can speak to it, and maybe you have just enough of experience from other places for everybody else to understand you too. You never know. If the Lord's telling you to return, trust Him. He knows what He is doing.